The year is 1453. On the shores of the Bosphorus, the air carries a heavy weight. For over a millennium, the Theodosian Walls have stood as the shield of Christendom. These massive stones have seen empires rise and vanish. But today, the dawn's silence feels hauntingly different. High on the ramparts, Byzantine guards watch the gray horizon with tired eyes. They can feel that their world is about to change forever. Their cloaks flutter in the cold breeze as they pace the battlements, marked by the grim resolve of men who have become part of the fortress itself. Constantinople, once the radiant city of cities, is no longer a vast empire. It has withered into a gilded fortress, a final gasp of Roman glory in a world that has moved on. The golden age has faded, leaving behind ghosts, legends, and crumbling marble monuments of a grander past. The city's population has dwindled, and the great palaces stand in decaying majesty. From the highest towers, defenders look toward the sea, waiting for a relief fleet that may never arrive. The isolation is absolute, surrounded by an enemy that grows stronger every single day. As the morning mist clears, it reveals a terrifying reality beyond the moat. Thousands of Ottoman campfires glow in the dark like a fallen constellation of destruction. The Sultan's army, a vast sea of white tents and sharpened steel, stretches as far as the horizon can see. This is the new age of gunpowder and massive cannons. The Sultan has brought engines of war that the ancient world has never faced before. The era of stone ramparts is being challenged by the devastating power of artillery, signaling the end of the old world security. Inside the city, the atmosphere is thick with terror and resignation. In narrow alleys, flickering oil lamps cast erratic shadows on ancient walls, reflecting the uncertain future of every soul. People move like ghosts, as the weight of the coming siege presses down on every house. Every bell in the Hagia Sophia now sounds like a countdown to the end of an age. The great church stands as a silent sentinel, its dome reflecting the pale morning light. It is the heart of a world praying for a miracle to save its soul amidst the rising smoke of war. The sound of prayer is joined by the cold grinding of steel against stone. Across the city, swords are sharpened for a battle few expect to survive. They prepare for a sacred sacrifice that will echo through centuries. Every man knows he is fighting for the memory of an entire world. Constantinople is breathing its last breaths of freedom. As the sun rises over the Bosphorus, the shadows on the ancient sundials move toward the final hour of the Roman dream. The last dawn has arrived, and the residents realize that their world will never be the same again. As we step onto the Mies, the great spinal cord of the city, we feel the echoes of 1,000 years of Roman power. Under marble colonnades that groan with age, the air still carries the faint scent of cloves and cinnamon, reminding us that this was once the final, golden link of the Silk Road. In the Forum of Constantine, the massive porphyry column rises like a silent finger pointed toward heaven. It has witnessed the rise and slow decay of imperial glory. Merchants in purple silk still try to maintain a fragile normalcy, exchanging gold coins under the cold, watchful eyes of ancient saints. But the luxury seen in the forums is merely a mask for the deep anxiety taking root in every household. In the taverns and public squares, the sound of laughter has been replaced by urgent, fearful whispers. People talk of wheat shortages and the terrifying new war engines gathering outside the gates. Every step across these polished stones reminds us that we are walking through a living museum. Every shadow in the corner of a courtyard could be the final record of a civilization that refuses to fade. The city feels caught between its majestic past and a dark, uncertain future of Ottoman shadow. The city's nobility still walks with a rigid, desperate grace, clinging to traditions that the world no longer respects. They gather in sun-drenched courtyards, drinking wine from silver chalices while the distant thud of cannon fire vibrates through the floor, a constant reminder of the coming storm. At the bakeries, the lines grow longer as the loaves grow smaller every day. Bread, once a symbol of the emperor's bounty, is now a precious commodity. The citizens' eyes are hollow, reflecting a mixture of hunger and a profound spiritual exhaustion that prayer alone can no longer satisfy. Yet, even in this extreme scarcity, the resilience of the Roman spirit remains evident. People share what little they have, bound together by the terrifying knowledge that their world is shrinking. This shared struggle creates a bond of brotherhood that only those facing total destruction can truly understand. The city's infrastructure is slowly failing as the siege tightens its grip. Grand stone fountains that once flowed with water are now dry and cracked. The once vibrant public baths are quiet, their steam replaced by a cold dampness that signals the neglect of a capital reaching its ultimate breaking point. As evening approaches, the shadows of the great palaces stretch across the streets like reaching fingers. The golden light of the setting sun hits the bronze statues, making them glow with a haunting, artificial life. It is the most beautiful hour in the city, and perhaps the most painful to witness. The residents realize they may never see the light hit these monuments in quite the same way again. There is a sense of mourning for things that haven't been lost yet. Every sunset feels like a final farewell to the city that was once the envy of the entire civilized world. The city is now a paradox of beauty and terror. While monks chant for divine mercy in the side chapels, soldiers prepare Greek fire in hidden workshops. The contrast between the sacred rituals of the church and the brutal needs of the military is visible on every street corner. Constantinople is breathing its last moments of autonomy. The air is thick with the realization that the empire of the Caesars is standing on its final, weary legs. As the night falls over the Mies, the city prepares for the dawn that will decide the fate of an entire civilization. Nothing prepares you for the moment you step out of the shadows and into the golden light of the Hagia Sophia. For nearly 1,000 years, this was the largest cathedral on earth, a space where the boundaries between heaven and earth seemed to dissolve into a single, divine reality. As you look upward, the massive dome appears to float on a ring of pure light, held up not by stone, but by the grace of God Himself. It is a masterpiece of Roman engineering that has survived centuries of turmoil, standing as a silent witness to the rise and fall of countless generations. The gold leaf mosaics of Christ and the Virgin Mary shimmer with every flicker of the thousands of candles below. Their silent, mosaic eyes seem to watch a congregation that no longer prays for imperial victory, but for divine mercy in the face of an unstoppable and encroaching storm. As you walk across the vast marble floors, the air grows cool and heavy with the scent of beeswax and centuries-old incense. The atmosphere is thick with the weight of history, a place where the echoes of ancient chants still seem to linger in the high, shadowed galleries of the nave. Thousands of flickering beeswax candles rest on large circular iron chandeliers, creating a sea of warm light. This glow creates a deep contrast with the cool, blue shadows stretching across the upper reaches of the cathedral, symbolizing the fragile light of faith in a darkening world. In a quiet corner stands the bronze-clad wishing column, worn smooth by the touch of millions of faithful fingers over the centuries. Today, the prayers whispered against its cold surface are more urgent than ever, as the people seek any sign of hope before the final assault begins. From the height of the upper galleries, the people below look small and vulnerable against the immense vastness of the cathedral. The scale of the Hagia Sophia reminds everyone of the grandeur that was once Rome, a majesty that is now concentrated within these sacred ancient walls. The air is filled with the haunting echoes of Greek liturgy, a sound that has defined the soul of the city for a millennium. The voices of the choir rise toward the dome, carrying the desperate hopes of a civilization that is preparing to face its ultimate and most painful trial. But even here, the sacred silence is not absolute. Occasionally, the distant thud of an Ottoman cannon vibrates through the very foundations of the holy ground. Dust falls from the high arches, a grim reminder that the walls of the world are beginning to crumble under the weight of iron. In these final days, the great church has become the city's last sanctuary. Rich and poor, noble and beggar, all huddled together in the dim light. Differences of rank and status have vanished, replaced by a shared identity as the last defenders of the Christian Roman East. The interior of the Hagia Sophia feels like a world unto itself, a golden bubble protected from the chaos outside. But everyone inside knows that the bronze doors cannot hold forever against the tide of history that is currently gathered just a few miles beyond the city gates. As the light begins to fade, the cathedral remains the spiritual lighthouse of Constantinople. It is the heart that keeps the city beating, even as the empire runs thin. For many, this is the only place left where the dream of Rome still feels truly alive, shining through the coming darkness. Outside the golden domes, the city's heartbeat has transformed into the rhythmic clanging of iron on iron. We move now to the Theodosian Walls, the most formidable defensive system in the ancient world, now facing its ultimate test against a power that has never been seen before on this earth. Here, the air is thick with the smell of wet earth, horse sweat, and the acrid smoke of sulfur. Byzantine soldiers, joined by brave volunteers from Venice and Genoa, work in a frantic race against time. They are preparing the ramparts for a storm that everyone knows is coming very soon. Groups of men are hauling massive stones to repair the breaches caused by early Ottoman cannon fire. The desperate energy is palpable as they struggle to fill the gaps in the ancient masonry. Every stone placed is a temporary shield against the relentless power of the Sultan's heavy artillery. You can see the grime on their faces and the blood on their tired hands as they sharpen their spears. There is a deep, quiet resolve in their movements. They are no longer fighting for glory or gold, but for the very survival of their families and the legacy of their ancestors. Giant crossbows and ballistas are being tested for tension, their heavy wooden frames creaking under the pressure. The defenders check the mechanical parts with meticulous care, knowing that a single failure during the assault could mean the difference between life and death for everyone on the battlements. Every man's gaze is constantly fixed beyond the deep moat, where the Ottoman horizon has turned into a vast sea of white tents. The sight is overwhelming, a display of military power that stretches further than the eye can see, waiting patiently for the final order to advance. They are watching a new kind of war arrive, the era of gunpowder. They understand that while their walls are made of ancient stone, the weapons facing them are designed to turn that stone into dust. It is a terrifying transition between the warfare of the past and the future. The courage of the 5,000 men defending these ramparts is the only shield left for the city. They stand in small groups, sharing stories or praying in silence, aware that they are vastly outnumbered. Yet, they refuse to leave their posts, bound by a duty to the city. Women and children from the city bring buckets of water and meager rations of bread to the weary soldiers. This community effort is the lifeblood of the defense. Every citizen has become a part of the war machine, contributing what little they have to keep the defenders standing. Small religious icons are nailed to the wooden defensive beams, providing a spiritual anchor amidst the physical chaos. Soldiers touch these icons for luck and protection, seeking strength from a higher power as the distant drums of the Ottoman army begin to echo across the empty plains. Polished plate armor and leather vests are buckled tight as the temperature drops in the evening. The sound of clinking metal is the only music on the walls tonight. Each man prepares his gear with the focus that blocks out the fear, centering his mind on the task ahead. As the sun sets on the iron ramparts, the isolation of Constantinople feels absolute. The city is a lonely island of stone in a world that has already decided its fate. But on these walls, the spirit of Rome remains defiant, ready to face the dawn with iron and blood. The final night has arrived, and a strange, heavy silence falls over Constantinople. Inside the Hagia Sophia, the last joint service between Greeks and Latins is held. Emperor Constantine, knowing this is his final night on earth, kneels before the altar in a moment of profound unity and heartbreaking resignation. The candles flicker for the last time as the scent of incense mixes with the cold air of destiny, marking the end of a 1,000-year spiritual journey for the Roman people. Across the moat, the Ottoman camp has gone dark. Sultan Mehmed has ordered total silence, a psychological weapon that weighs heavy on the defenders. The only sound is the rhythmic lapping of the sea and the distant, ominous creak of war engines being positioned for the ultimate strike. Constantine moves to the walls one last time to speak to his soldiers as brothers. He tells them that a man should be ready to die for his faith, his country, and his family. His voice is steady, but his eyes reflect the soul-crushing weight of a millennium of history ending on his watch. He knows that by dawn, the title of emperor may no longer exist, yet he stands tall, a final living monument to the glory of ancient Rome, inspiring every man to hold their ground until the very last breath. At 1:30, the silence is shattered. A single signal fire rises, and suddenly, the entire horizon explodes into chaos. The irregular troops charge toward the walls with ladders and hooks, screaming battle cries that echo like a tidal wave against the ancient stone defenses. The sky is no longer dark. It is filled with the rain of burning arrows and stones. The defenders pour Greek fire and boiling oil onto the attackers, turning the moat into a literal lake of flames that illuminates the horrific struggle. The screams of men and the clashing of steel create a symphony of horror that signifies the true beginning of the end. Every second feels like an eternity as the Roman walls are bathed in the orange glow of a world that is slowly burning to the ground. Then comes the roar of the great bombard. The ground trembles as massive stone balls strike the Theodosian walls. Dust and debris fill the air, making it impossible to breathe. In the smoke, the defenders struggle to see the gaps being torn into their last line of protection. Text: a small postern gate, the Kirka Porta, is inadvertently left unlatched. A few janissaries notice the opening and fight their way inside. It is a tiny mistake, but in the heat of battle, it becomes a fatal wound. The cry, "The city is taken," begins to spread like a wildfire through the streets, more devastating to morale than any cannonball. Panic takes hold as the realization dawns that the unbreakable shield has finally been pierced, and the enemy is now within the heart of the capital. The emperor realizes the end has come. He flings away his purple cloak and his crown, preferring to die as a common soldier rather than be captured as a trophy. He charges into the thickest part of the fight and vanishes into history. No one knows exactly where he fell, but his sacrifice ensured that the last Roman emperor died defending his home. His blood mingles with the soil of the city he loved, marking the definitive conclusion of the line of Caesars that began 15 centuries before. As the sun rises on May 29th, the light reveals a city in its death throes. Ottoman flags are raised atop the towers of St. Romanus. The resistance is crumbling, and the streets that once echoed with Caesars are now filled with the chaos of a capital being taken. The doors of the Hagia Sophia are finally broken down. The people inside, who had prayed for a miracle, now face the reality of their fate. The great church is no longer a sanctuary. It is the final stage for the end of a civilization. The golden mosaics that once looked down on coronations now witness the capture of the faithful. The silence of prayer is replaced by the sounds of a new era arriving with force, as the last remnants of the Byzantine world are led away into the pages of history. The Roman eagle has finally fallen. The empire that reached its peak with Trajan has breathed its last breath. Constantinople, the capital of the world for 11 centuries, is now the new seat of Ottoman power. The Middle Ages are officially over, and the Renaissance begins in the shadow of this great loss. Symbols of the old world are cast down, and the double-headed eagle is trampled into the mud, never to fly over the Bosphorus again as the master of the East and the West. Sultan Mehmed enters the city on a white horse. He rides toward the Hagia Sophia, but he is not a man of simple destruction. He stops at the threshold, sprinkles dust over his head as a gesture of humility, and enters the building, marveling at its eternal and sacred beauty. Inside the great church, the Sultan orders an imam to proclaim the Islamic faith. The mosaics of the saints are covered, and the sounds of the liturgy are replaced by the call to prayer. The Hagia Sophia is transformed, marking the shift from the Byzantine era to the Ottoman centuries. This moment redefines the building as a symbol of the new empire's triumph, ensuring that its majestic dome would continue to dominate the skyline, but under a different crescent and a new divine order. But as the city falls, its spirit escapes. Scholars and priests flee to the west, carrying ancient Greek manuscripts and the knowledge of the Romans. These refugees will fuel the fires of the Renaissance in Italy, ensuring that while the city was lost, the wisdom of Constantinople would change the world forever. They carry the seeds of the classical world in their wooden crates, traveling across the sea to plant them in a Europe that is finally ready to wake up from its long slumber. The Blacherney Palace now stands empty and silent. Its halls are filled with the ghosts of emperors who shaped the history of Europe. The silence here is a final testament to the transience of power and the inevitable march of time over human vanity. The gardens where princes once walked are now overgrown, and the marble corridors echo only with the wind, a somber reminder that even the most powerful walls cannot protect a kingdom from the slow, steady erosion of the centuries. Today, the walls of Constantinople still stand, scarred by the cannons of 1453. They remain as a bridge between two worlds, a reminder of the night an empire died so a new era could be born. To walk these stones is to touch the pulse of history itself. A legend persists that the Emperor Constantine was not killed, but turned into marble and hidden in a cave near the Golden Gate. It is said he will one day return to reclaim his city. This myth reflects the refusal of the world to believe that something so grand as Rome could truly disappear. Even in defeat, the image of the sleeping emperor remains a beacon of hope for those who find beauty in the lost causes and the enduring legacy of a fallen, but never forgotten, civilization. The fall of the city changed the map of the world forever. It forced Europeans to look for new routes to the east, leading directly to the discovery of the Americas. In a strange twist of fate, the end of the Roman Empire in the east was the catalyst for the birth of the modern Atlantic world. The closing of the Silk Road gates in Constantinople opened the doors to the entire planet, proving that the death of one world is often the painful labor of another's miraculous birth. Constantinople may have changed its name and its faith, but its essence as a bridge between East and West remains unchanged. It is a city of layers, where Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman coexist in a complex and beautiful dance. It remains the center of the world's imagination, a place where every stone has a story and every sunset reflects the gold of 1,000 years. Istanbul is the living heir to a legacy that refuses to be buried, a city that belongs to all of human history. As we conclude our tour, take a moment to look at the horizon. The sun has set on the Caesars, but the light of their civilization continues to glow in the foundations of our own. History does not end. It merely transforms. Constantinople will always be the place where the world turned the page, a reminder that even in the face of total fall, the spirit of what we create can endure forever in the memories of those who come after us.